in Texas red dirt songs that are packing the dance floor. I'll be featuring local artists and the story behind the hits, shows in the area, as well as new songs that make you want to dance. It's Dance Time in Texas with DJ Mike on Lone Star Community Radio, 104.5 KCZW and 106.1 KZCC, Conroe, Texas, or online, irlonestar.com.
You're listening to Lone Star Community Radio on 104.5 KCCW LP Conroe and 106.1 KZCC LP Conroe and worldwide at irlonestar.com. Thank you for listening to Lone Star Community Radio. This program was broadcasted and recorded live from the LSCR studios in downtown Conroe, Texas. Lone Star Community Radio is supported by listeners like you. Donate and sponsor today. For more information on getting involved with Lone Star Community Radio, contact us at lscrstudios@gmail.com or visit us online at www.irlonestar.com.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us on the Cindy Cochran Show. Oh, wow. I'm loud in my ears. I'm going...
How do you think I feel every show?
Every show. Because do I talk too loud into your earphones?
No, that's why you have a volume right next to you.
No, I mean, that's what I mean. When I came on, I was like, oh, too much. Because I'm not used to wearing the headsets. But it makes you look like you're really on the radio. And we have an exciting guest today. If you've checked out the YouTube, our Lone Star Community Radio, we are going to be talking over the phone to Don Wilson. And Don is such a friend of the group here because he's been on since when we were over at the other place. And he's introduced me to so many different celebrities. And so I told Don, you send me some pictures and maybe we can if I could get here in time to give them to Richard. He sent me, my phone totally blew up really. It was amazing. I have all these pictures and there's no way it would have been like the whole show would be just him and these pictures because they're so awesome. I mean, it's all the people that I grew up with on TV and movies and all that. So what I'm going to do, if he'll give me permission, is to I want to put these down with the name of the person he's standing there with, and put it on my Facebook, on my personal Facebook, Cindy Robinson Cochran, and do a tribute to Don. Don's getting ready to do a podcast about classic Hollywood, and I love that. I love that so much. So we're going to talk about that and talk about some of the stories. And, of course, we'll have to throw in some Elvis stuff because he is my Elvis Presley connection. When I found out, my voice, when I found out that he was, he had a horrible tragedy happen early in his life. All of his family was in a car that was hit by a train, and he was with his grandmother, I think. And so Elvis found out that he had lost all of his family, and he had met them prior to that. So Elvis told him he wanted him to come to Memphis, and he did. And he hung out with all the stars, and he was introduced to every star in the world.
So you've had Don on a lot, and I love it. And now I'm thinking about it. I think Don was really kidnapped.
You think he was?
Yeah, I think he was kidnapped.
That Elvis kidnapped him?
He kidnapped him.
Oh, because he was just a young boy.
You got kidnapped, Don. We know it. When you come on, you gotta set the record straight.
Great. Isn't that a great way to be introduced, Don? Is to
tell us the truth.
Lay out something like that and get that rumor started. No, I'm
kidding.
I'm so sure it didn't happen that way. But I had met Don early in the 70s because he came over onto the Channel 13 show, and he went to all the people that were in the show that did things, and I was interpreting the news for the deaf, about a 5-minute segment on Dialing for Dollars. And so he came and took a picture with me, and then I mean, fast forward 50 years, 20 years, he sends me a text that, "Are you this Cindy Cochran?" And he put his picture with standing next to me. And I was pregnant with Chad, and it was in 77. So is when I had Chad, but I was pregnant with him, and Don came on the show, and he was talking about he received the last letter that Elvis had sent. It was just like a letter, "Thank you, it's good to see you, or hope you're doing well," and that kind of stuff. And so he received the last letter from Elvis before he died, and it was and so he has that connection, and he's seen how people are around Elvis and all of Elvis's mafia, the Memphis Mafia and all that. So he has so much history, so many stories about Elvis, and it was great having him on, and we had a lot of fun with that. And so I was trying to tell Bob Smiley yesterday about how popular Don is when he comes on, and the people that come on to listen to Don and the stories and stuff. And so Bob called me after the show yesterday. He says, okay, it's on. I'm going to come back in 2 weeks, and I'll bring you some listeners. Yeah, and we'll see who gets the most listeners. So he's already started this competition stuff, so it's going to be fun. But before we get to Don, I have to say thank you to our sponsor, Chris Wootton and the Wootton Financial Group. They've been with us, loyal. Now we're in a new year. They're still with us, and it's been amazing. And we have Chris on from time to time so that he can keep everybody, calm their fears about the economy and things like that, and tell them what's the best way to look at this and do this. And if you haven't started saving yet, which I'm one of those, I tried saving. It's just I got to get some more money so I can save it. But if you haven't started saving it, you can do it. Start right now, today. That would be your New Year's resolution. And we'll talk about some resolutions in this show as well. But anyway, so now, without any further ado, we're going to now introduce you to
Don. Are you there?
Don.
Yes, I am here. How are you doing, guys?
Did you get to hear everything we were talking about?
Yes, I heard everything. And it's so good to be on the Bob Smiley show. The Cindy Cochran show.
Well, when he comes on, it's like that I have to hold my hand up to ask the question, like, would Josh, you and Richard be quiet so I can say something? But it is so good to hear your voice. And I called him this morning at 11 o'clock. It wasn't too early, was it? It wasn't too early when I called you. And we're on the same time zone.
No, it wasn't too early. No, I was
Okay.
awake, so, it's never that early.
I know. I
always got time for you, Cindy.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much. You're so sweet. So you heard what I said I'm going to do with all your pictures. I think I'm going to do this thing with you and introducing your podcast that's coming out, and do it on my personal Facebook page, because I have got like thousands of people that watch my Facebook, and I've got to do that for you and put those pictures and names and all that. And your podcast, is it started or is it getting ready to go?
Actually, I've had it. I just took off for a year, and Spotify is in charge of it now. It used to be on a different platform, but they bought it. So I'm kind of changed my format a little bit. I'm still going to have interviews, but I'm going to be playing some music of some great artists, and give some background on them. So it's going to be a little different, kind of like my old radio shows I used to do.
When you were DJing. And what's so cool is when you told me that Spotify owns all this stuff, owns Beatles and all the, of course, Elvis, but all the greats, they own that stuff, so you don't have to worry about only playing 15 seconds of it at a time. And
well, I don't know if they own it. They have the rights to use it.
Right. Well, that's
I think that. Yeah, but it's it's just like I've contacted, some of the agents for some of the, the artists just out of courtesy. But yeah, it's since it's Spotify, and they get a lot of hits on, Spotify. Paul McCartney came out on his Spotify page thanking everybody for listening. So I think the Beatles were kind of kicking and screaming at first because they didn't like streaming until they understood it.
That's and if I could ever understand that as well, that would be great. But I appreciate it. I mean, I sit here, he puts the camera on, and it goes out everywhere. And what would kill me is I tell people, I said, now look, this is like a small town radio station. It's a community radio station, but we go all over the world. I mean, it's on the internet, and so it's difficult when people say, well, but who's watching you? How many people are watching you and all that? And that's what Bob gives me trouble with every time. So how many people really are watching today? And can we just call each one of them and just tell them hello? And I went, no, we're not going to do that. And he's always given me the business. But now when I challenged him with your pull, he said, okay, I'll bring some fans along. I'll bring some listeners along. So it will be fun.
All right. Well, we'll see. I love Bob Smiley. He's great. So we'll just we'll have his fans and our fans.
Right.
Maybe we'll just do a show together one of these days.
Oh yeah, that'd be awesome. He would love to talk to you. Yeah, because. I mean, he's old enough to understand and to remember Elvis, so it's okay. But tell me about this list of people that you just sent me. It's so funny because it's them now. It's what they look like now, and it's almost some of them need to have a picture of who they were, what they looked like when they were in their prime. But a lot of them. Still, I mean, you can tell when you stood there and stare at him, and I know who you are. I remember you. Now, probably someone like Richard may not remember. He may not be as impressed as I am about how many people.
He's a baby compared to me. Yeah,
he is a baby. But he had older brothers and sisters.
That was funny, being kidnapped. I really wasn't kidnapped, but Richard keeps his own show.
He has these random thoughts, like someone who has Tourette's syndrome sometimes, and when he's talking, and he'll just come out with something that hit his head, and he goes, "Listen." And he's always talking about the drugs.
He's very entertaining, though. I like Richard. He's a nice guy. So.
No, I don't. I've had people go like, "It's really funny to listen to Richard trash you and then see how you react to it." That's what they think is funny. So,
well, that's the kind of sense of humor Elvis had. So I'm sure that he would have liked Richard.
Oh, really? He had like a dry sense of humor and a biting
Very.
one? Oh, okay.
Well, that's like Eric Idle. Raymond Zarek introduced me to Eric Idle backstage. I sent you that picture too.
Yes.
Of Monty Python. Now, Elvis loved Monty Python movies and their TV show, and I was telling him, and he says, "Are you kidding me?" He said, "Elvis, liked us." And he says, "Wait till I tell the other, guys, And so he didn't know, and evidently they didn't know how much Elvis just loved that sense of humor.
Right.
And it's just like, now it's not a sense of humor, but Elvis loved David Carradine in Kung Fu, and I got to know David pretty well. And I told him one day, and he was sitting Indian style, barefoot as usual. Mm-hmm. And I said, Elvis really loved you in Kung Fu. He said, I'll paraphrase it. He said, "You are kidding me." And I was like, "No." He says, "Really?" And he said a few choice things, and he says, "Oh my gosh!" He said, "I could have hung with Elvis." And he was ruminating about that for a while.
Well, it's like when you I have to bring this up because it's so amazing. And I couldn't believe how much I chewed on this for as long as I did after you told me. You said, well, I showed Elvis that picture of you and I I think you were 13 years old. And he said, "Now that's a pretty girl," or something like that. and I was
Man,
like,
she's pretty, something like that.
I like the man. She's pretty. That's good. That's good. But he when you when you said that, I'm thinking, now that's weird. He showed him the picture and he said that. That is. I had to tell my sister. My sister was just, I'm sure, jealous. She didn't say it, but I'm sure she was, because she thought she was his number one fan. And how many people I've talked to that said, no, I'm his number one fan. Number one fan. So I think that's, because we grew up with him, and every song that came out, and my sister, and she had a group of girls, they would sing a cappella stuff, and it was, and so they felt like one day probably that they would meet him. And it was great, because she's the one that just dropped everything when she found out that he had passed, and called her husband and said, I don't care what you're doing. I've already made the connection with the flight we're going to go to, and we're going to Memphis. We're going to go. And I couldn't believe it. I said, you flew out there? She said, yeah, I just had to be there by the house, by Graceland. And so anyway, you have such an interesting past, and some of it is very tragic, and I know that made you a stronger person, and what you went through, and then you have have met all these people. Is there any common denominator that you see when you meet people that have had that kind of fame?
Well, it's most every celebrity that I've ever met, I don't care who they are, how big they are, once they know that I got to be around Elvis a bit, they'll just say, what was Elvis like, and some of them, I wasn't real close with Elvis, like I was still young and all of that, but Richard Davis, his bodyguard and movie stand-in, he said that Elvis, was trying to, I guess, groom me in a way, and to be like
mentor you,
like he was his valet. I mean, worked for him at some point, but I was too young at the time. But it's just amazing. Mickey Rooney, first time I met Mickey Rooney, he started talking about Elvis, and these are big stars of their day, and it's incredible how many lives Elvis touched.
Right.
So it's a domino effect.
Well, it was just so interesting, and I remember reading the book whenever Red and all those guys wrote the book, and it upset Elvis, and Elvis felt betrayed. But I mean, that's the way it came across in the news, is that he felt betrayed by the book that they had written. And I was so angry with his entourage, because they had a great opportunity to do so much and be so, have a lot of stuff red carpeted out for them, and for them to say anything that would put any kind of, makes people disillusioned with Elvis.
Well, Steve Dunleavy, who really wrote the book, he took it from interviews of Red, Sonny, and Dave. And I know that they all loved Elvis. In fact,
right.
Dave's still, around. But Steve Dunleavy, I knew Steve, so I can say it. He was a very sensationalistic writer.
Oh.
And he got some things wrong, and he beefed up a lot of that stuff, for some sensationalism.
Right.
And I remember being at Frank Sinatra's funeral, and I ran into him, and he was a typical journalist like that. He was jumping up and down, running all over everywhere, trying to get a story, trying to get word from somebody to get a story. But they just had the wrong guy write the book. Steve was always nice to me, but it's just, they should have had a good, writer that had some compassion for the man.
Right.
And they didn't.
Because I know that Red and them has said that they were trying to do this to help him. They just wanted him to get help and to help, and that was their justification for the book. Do you remember that?
Yes, that is absolutely true. But it just came out at the wrong time, and it was the wrong way to do it, and it really upset Elvis. And I mean, it is what it is, though. But and some people blame them for for Elvis's death, but he really, his death was really hereditary. And a friend of mine, Sally Hodell, wrote a book called Destined to Die Young about Elvis that I'm not going to go into all of the details about it, but, fans should really pick that up, and they'll find out more. That he always said that he wasn't going to live much past 40. And unfortunately he didn't. But
because his mom, it was what his mom had suffered with.
Well, yeah, I don't want to get too much in, to Sally's book, but it's really, it's hereditary. A lot of the different things that went wrong with him and with Lisa Marie and his mother, and so it's worth looking into. But we'll have to talk more about. We could do a whole show about that, Cindy.
Yeah, that's true. Because I do want to get to your podcast. I want to talk about that now. So you're on the air now at Spotify. They go to Spotify and search Don Wilson Hollywood Beat.
Don Wilson's Hollywood Beat. You can look that up on Spotify, and it's available, I think, on Google Podcasts. It's quite a few platforms, at least a half a dozen. But the one with Spotify, that's where you'll hear the music, because when it goes out on another platform, you're not going to be hearing probably more than like what we were talking about earlier, like taking 10 seconds of music, and that'll be about it.
Yeah, right. Right. See, I tried. Remember, Richard, when I was telling you that as long as it was under 15 seconds, you wouldn't be charged for royalty? Do you remember me telling you that? You don't remember me telling you that? Because we're talking about what to open the show with. You could open it with different songs as long as you played it under 15 seconds. And he's confirming that. Is that wrong?
See, I think
yeah. Well,
it's
I don't know these days.
It's a little different with going live, and I try to explain that to you, but you refuse to listen to that. No. So when you go live with music, basically Facebook and YouTube and these live streaming platforms have a computer that's detecting this stuff, and to prevent any copyright issue, they automatically take it down, because they don't want to have to deal with maybe not, maybe yes. But if you, say, go out and create a video and film it, edit it, compile it, and then send it to YouTube, before you release it, it does a check, and it says, like, hey, you have copyrighted material on this. You don't care to make royalties from this, so we're going to give the royalties. If it does make money, give it to the rightful person who made the music. So you can still do it, but we don't have that ability because we're live. So their default for going live is no copyright stuff. If it's there, we're just going to take it down. And that's why I always said, if you ever wanted to do a show that had copyrighted material that you wanted to use, we need to record it.
That's why we recorded.
So
is he right?
That's right. So it's just like if you put a video, a home video of yourself, and you put on a song that's copyrighted on top of it, and then you put it on Facebook, you still could get dinged on it. I mean, the computer may go ahead and say, well, the rights go to Sony, or they might say there's an issue, and you'll get a notification.
Yeah. Facebook's a little easier on you. It just says, hey, we detected this. Are you doing this? And you say yes. And then they'll be like, okay, you can continue streaming. Because you've already said, yeah, we're using copyright material. Don't basically monetize us.
Oh,
But
so you're giving up
YouTube-
the monetizing, yes.
Yeah, and YouTube just says no, you're off the air until this changes.
Oh, okay. And now, if it's a song, like if I wrote a song,
It doesn't
Samantha
matter.
sing
I've-
it doesn't matter.
I mean, I don't know.
That just
I can't explain this
doesn't
to you
make
10,000
sense.
times to Cindy.
Like, it doesn't make sense.
But even if you play the guitar, like say you play a Beatles tune, it could still detect it. You don't know what the machine's going to do. So basically, that's what I always told you. We're not going to do that because unless you don't want to go live. If you
Is
don't
this-
want to,
If I want to,
if you want to record it, you can totally do anything you want to do. But
Ooh, okay.
yeah,
Well, no, but I like live.
I know because you still don't listen to me when I. When you come in and go, oh, I got this guy's CD. Can we play it? No, we cannot play it.
But as long as if he came in and we recorded the show,
Yeah.
we can play it. Okay. All right. So anyone that out there that has music you want to be heard, just call me. Richard's going, don't you tell him to call me. No. But
DJ Cindy.
yeah. Thank you.
Well-
Thank you, Don, for going through that vetting. Okay. So
But Don, the podcast sounds really interesting. I love the dual format of information while playing music because I feel like that's the old school DJ way
yes.
of setting up an entertainment show. And there's a lot of DJs today that do not do that because of the limitations. And I know us at the station, we used to have DJs here. But
Right.
their main limitation, like I told them at the very beginning, you're only going to be on the FM in the stream, like the audio stream.
Oh, okay.
Like you can't go on Facebook, you can't go on YouTube. If you want to do that, you have to do normal interviews and no music. Because I know we got dinged all the time on my morning show because we would always come in at the tail end of a song. Because you know how you go to the post.
Oh,
so
that's
I'd be
right.
like, hey, that
Yeah.
was Johnny Cash. Now we're here talking to Cindy Cochran. Well, that 5 seconds, it recognized that 5 seconds of Johnny Cash, and it's like, no, can't do that.
Ooh. Is that AI?
Yeah, that's what I was trying to explain to you. It's one of those funny things with the new tech, and that's why I like what Don's doing with his show. Is he's
Yeah.
bringing the old format to the new tech, and that's why Spotify is working with him, saying like, "Hey, we want you to do this with Spotify because they're trying to make that a thing at Spotify. They're trying to do DJs."
Ah.
So, which is cool, and I really like. I'm excited to share that stuff with Don or with the listeners. So, Don, I think Cindy sent me the link. I'm going to try to include it in the description after the show. So,
I appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah, you got.
Yeah, that's what I used to do, Richard. I knew these old time DJs, and I got to be around Wolfman Jack, and George Klein was a good friend of mine. He was like the Dick Clark of Memphis, one of Elvis's buddies. He had Talent Party. He even had Led Zeppelin on his television show in the studio, and he emceed the Beatles. So I mean, these guys that I learned from, and he was my mentor. And George said, well, when you get on the air, he says, you got to be dynamic, be yourself. And he says, don't be one of these guys that said, and that was Pat Boone, Love Letters in the Sand. It's very monotone. Get on there and say, yeah, that was Pat Boone, rock out, that was Ain't That a Shame. That's just my style because I took from the guys that I knew.
Well,
And,
Wolfman Jack was, famous for that. And I just saw American Graffiti the other night, and we were talking about Wolfman Jack and how he was just, I forgot about how iconic he was. It was great. He was amazing. Have you ever heard?
Yeah,
I don't think Richard's
ahead,
ever
what?
heard. I don't think Richard's ever heard Wolfman Jack. Have you?
no, sadly, I'm not really educated on the DJ world
Oh, okay.
because I grew up right when I loved my music. I had the iPod.
Ah,
Because I'll
Yeah.
never forget I was a counselor at a summer camp for a month, and one of the kids there, their dad was some Apple dude, like a designer or an engineer or something, and he had the original iPod before it was released
oh,
because his dad gave him one.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. Because I had a mini disc player at the time, and mini disc players were somewhat of a new technology where you can make your own mixtapes. Instead of
because making your own mixtapes was always a big deal. Like growing up with my family, where they would listen to Don on the radio and record his show because Don always played the greatest songs, and then you make a mixtape from Don's show to have your favorite collections. And mini disc was players. I don't know if anyone would look it up. What mini disc was. It literally looked like a little floppy disk, and it was all digital, so you can actually compile it on your computer and then send it to the disc. And it would sit there and write it. You can see it like just spinning and writing.
Well, see, that's what's so funny is because stuff like that would come along and dissipate a lot of the people that we remember. But it's funny because like I remember Napster came along and then there was all these legal problems that had happened with all the music world, and it was tearing everybody apart.
Well, one thing I always wonder, especially I would love Don's input on this, because his experience with meeting these musicians, and especially the time period of the technology restrictions we had. Because one thing I always kind of believed growing up was the reason the Beatles were so popular, the reason Elvis was so popular was there was only like one way to listen to music. Mm-hmm. And it cost a lot of money to make music back then, to put it on a record, to distribute that record across the country. And people who had that network could really become popular because that was really the only way, to listen to it.
Right.
And so when you went to the record store, there might not have been, a million artists. So today you can go to Spotify and you can find a million artists at your fingertips. So I always wondered if Elvis would be popular if he came out today compared to when, that restriction was existing with the records and the pressing, and also especially when he was in Vegas, there's a reason he went to Vegas because that's where the money was.
Yeah. And
now today, I always wondered if the Beatles would still be big if they just started releasing music today, and everyone can just skip the song or not even know they existed because,
Well, I think Elvis, he'd have to be. He would.
I don't know.
Be.
That's why I always wondered.
All the people my age start dying out, and
I kind of pinpoint it to, and I would love again. This is like a two-parter now for Don. Is the big artists today? I kind of have zero idea about. And I heard about this one guy named Lil Nas X. I think his name is Lil Nas X. He's apparently a really famous rapper / performer. Well, I don't know him because I've never seen his performances, and no one's ever really said, oh, he has these great songs. It's always, oh, you should just look at him. You just need to look at him. He's like a rebel in today's standard. And I'm like, okay, well, what about the music? And I always felt like Elvis had the talent.
Right.
But then it was like he also
Elvis was the whole package. Yeah. He had,
the looks,
and he came along at the right time. That's what he always said himself,
Right.
And, there's a big thing now about Taylor Swift having, more time on the charts as number one. Well, that's true, probably because of all of the different streaming services and everything. So it's really not fair, but to really equate that with Elvis and his sales, because those were solid sales back in the day. Mm-hmm. But, I looked it up on Billboard, and the biggest sellers, number one, are the Beatles. Number two is still Elvis. And Taylor Swift is at 25. So all of this hype, about, Taylor beating, Elvis or Garth Brooks, you got to look at the real statistics and, the actual sales as opposed to today where, like Richard said, they've got the streaming services, the downloads. It's a whole different ballgame.
Especially Taylor Swift. One thing I love giving people a hard time about her, because if you look at her catalog in the past, I would say it was like the past 5 to 10 years, she hasn't really released anything new. Because what she did was she found a legal loophole where she could own her music again if she just re-recorded the album. So all these downloads and stuff is from an album from like 15 years ago. Oh. But she just re-recorded it so she can make royalties off of it. And I was like, that's kind of unfair to compare her. If anything, she's a genius for doing it, because it's like, oh, I can make more money if I just re-record it. So when you follow her on social media, she's like, new track coming out tomorrow. It's the re-release of this popular song from 15 years ago. I'm like, is that a new track? Is it a new track?
Is it really a new track? Well, I think Elvis is always, I mean, until this generation dies out, I mean, I really don't think anybody's going to be able to match what he accomplished in that time period.
He wouldn't believe him but himself, and he thought he'd be forgotten in 10 years,
Right. Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, he's still, what Mindy was talking about, how he was so shocked that people were still coming to his concerts. They'd drive up and, parking lots full, people, all these thousands of people coming in. He couldn't believe it. Like, why would they still come see me?
Like, I always wondered, too, with artists that are, like, so Elvis had a tragic ending, right? Mm-hmm. Well, then you have, like, the Rolling Stones who are still going. And I always wondered when he, like, say, like, the Rolling Stones pass away due to, like, natural causes. Mm-hmm. Like, will they still be as big as, say, Elvis? Because I feel like the tragedy of Elvis was kind of all incorporated with his music. And that's what fascinated people about him. But with the Rolling Stones, it's like everyone's just kind of wondering, like, how are they still alive?
I think it was because...
Well, Elvis, but like I said, he was a product of his time, but you got to think Elvis has been gone nearly 50 years. He would have been 89 on the 8th. It's amazing that his name is still up there,
right?
All these years later. I mean, that shows the talent and the sales that the man had. It's people are still talking about him.
Well, the mystery I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was finished.
No, the mysterious mystery of the spottings of Elvis all around after he died. And it continued on for so long because no one ever saw him in the casket. They didn't see him in the casket. They didn't see it was him and knew it was him.
The general public, then, I saw him in the casket.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it was him, and all this stuff about him being a wax dummy, and they had air conditioning and all that in there to keep from melting. That's just all ridiculous, and that's just tabloid crap.
Well,
and they were selling papers,
Right. And then the pictures of the papers that they have, I remember that. But Larry Geller was the one who also put that to bed. He says, I was the last one to see him because everybody was leaving the room, and I went over and opened the top part of that casket, and I told him goodbye. And so
he touched him, yeah.
And touched him. I just want to be the last one to touch him and to say goodbye to him. And it was such when he told me that they called him in and he went to the funeral home and he had to go around trying to get black mascara from everybody so that he could fix his hair. He'd gotten white because he'd been on, he'd been off doing any touring or anything, and so he had to fix it. To put it back the way that Elvis would want it to be seen last, and I thought that just sounded very Hollywoodish,
Well, I mean, everybody in Elvis's life were there for a reason. And it's like Elvis said, there's a reason for everything. There's no such thing as coincidence. He said that so much, and he told me that. And he said, every 7 years, your life is going to change, and you write down all of the different things. And I've done it, and it's true, It's just amazing, I want to tell you something that Elvis related, because, many years ago, about over 20 years ago, I did Elvis shows, and actually a couple of the guys, Richard Davis and George Klein, kind of talked me into doing it. And George said, you're just about as good as any of the other guys, and you respect him. So I started doing it. Anyway, I mean, I wasn't in costume. I was wearing a black leather jacket, but I went down to see Robin Williams when he put his hand and footprints in Grauman's Chinese Theater. And I had the black hair and the sideburns. And I just said, congratulations, Mr. Williams. And he looked at me very solemn-like, and he said, well, thank you. And then he walked away, and I'm thinking, this is very serious. And then he pointed back at me in the typical Robin Williams style.
Yeah.
The king is here. Look, there he is. That's my Robin Williams moment. And that's the only one I got.
Oh, man. Oh, that's pretty good, though.
Anyway, yeah, he had just done Patch Adams, and he had that little clown nose or whatever, and he actually put that into the concrete. I saw him do that.
Oh, he did?
But yeah, so many different things.
See that? Were you in L.A. for how long? How long were you in L.A.?
About a little over 20 years.
20 years. And so on your show, you had celebrities come in and interview them, right? When you were doing your show? That's amazing. I mean, what a great place to be in, and then to have that connection, and what pull you had. Because I remember when we first got back together, I said, do you know so-and-so? And of course, you knew everybody, and I knew that. And he says, listen, do you want to get this person? I'll get this person for you. I'll have him call you. Yeah, does it? And it was amazing. And the only person we never finally connected was Flowers. What was her first name?
Oh, Jennifer. Yeah,
Jennifer Flowers. Because you knew that
maybe I can get a hold of her and we'll do it for you. You need to do that.
You know how bad I'd wanted to interview her, and I can imagine the blowback we'd probably get from doing that. But she's got
a new nightclub in New Orleans. You guys can talk about that too.
Ah, she does. Oh, very interesting. Yeah, that would be funny. But I think you and the other person that it was on the Beverly Hillbillies, Max Baer. Max Baer. Yeah, and I have this drawing that my dad did of his dad when he was boxing, and it's a pencil drawing. It's really good, and I kept that. And then when you said you knew his his son from Beverly Hillbillies, but it was so cool because I thought that's really something he certainly touched a lot of people. And when he came off with the character that he did you ever talk to him about that? About was he sorry he created that character?
Well, no, he's not sorry about it, but he just wanted to go on and do other things. I told him a couple of years ago, I said, because Denise got me for one of the Christmas presents was the box set of the Beverly Hillbillies, and I told him that, and he said, "Oh my God!" He said, "That's the best you got." But he laughs at himself, But he said he had a great time with those people, But the funny thing about it is, he said. Well, I'm not going to go into it. We could go into a lot of the things, but he has a lot of funny things. But he's a great businessman, and movie director, and he did Ode to Billy Joe, and he worked with Bobby Gentry, and so it's
he grew.
Macon County Line.
He certainly grew from Jethro, and the county line thing was really interesting because nobody, when they saw his name up there, I was like, what is Jethro doing in movies or producing or directing movies, and he was really well known, and that would have been a lot of fun to get him. I think sometimes I would call. Well, you still can. I know Max still. He used to play football with Elvis. That's how I got to know him. It's for Elvis's guys. Oh, you mean when they would play football on the grounds there at Graceland? Well, no. This is when Elvis was making movies, and Max was doing the Beverly Hillbillies. They were all friends at the time, and so they get together in the park there in Beverly Hills, and they'd play, or Elvis's house or something. Yeah, and sometimes Rick Nelson would join in, or Robert Conrad, or he had Elvis knew so many people that the general public just do not have a clue. Elvis's friends are John Wayne, and used to have lunch with him at Paramount, but there's no pictures of that. Oh,
But A.C.
goodness.
Lyles, who was really the figurehead at Paramount, was a friend of mine, and he relayed that to me. And Elvis would come over to his office, which was adjoined to James Cagney, had an office there. And so Elvis would be in there with Cagney and him. And see, people don't generally know that.
No, you don't associate them. That's going to be interesting on your podcast. Is all those stories that you do have? People don't realize, don't know that you've accumulated a lot of history, and with very famous people, and you always get so afraid of that all dying out, and you feel like, well, Turner Classic is there to try and keep that alive, except they keep coming up with these 70s or 80s movies they put in their lineup, and I go like, ugh. There was a time in Hollywood, I think in the 70s, where you just felt like, what are y'all thinking?
Yeah.
It was not really good. And plus, before the restriction on what they could show and all that came about, it was like how when you watch TCM and they'll say the code was pre-code, and pre the Catholic Church coming in and saying, no, you can't go see this, you can't go see that. And so there was a lot of restriction going on, but it was like some of the best movies made. They were really, really good, but not in the 70s. 70s, I just didn't think, I don't know what happened. 80s, it got better, a little better. But go ahead.
Well, I have some film stars that I have a lot of interviews that go back 25 years. So, I mean, and people were on my show that are gone, like Gene Autry.
Right.
Gene and my dad's. And Gene was such a classy guy that he actually sent me a thank you letter for him being on my show, because I did a tribute to him.
Oh, my goodness.
And so I'll have to send you that letter, too. But Glenn and I were very good friends. And so I have an exclusive interviews, two of them with Glenn, and I'll be playing his music. That's another thing that's going to be coming up. So I think that people would be interested. I've got some stories with and interviews with Jackie DeShannon, and I'll tell you a real funniest story, because I was to me it is anyway. The anniversary of Rick Nelson's passing was on New Year's Eve. Well, Sharon Shealy wrote Poor Little Fool, which became a hit for Rick.
Right.
But what happened was she sent the song to Elvis, who was in the Army. Elvis turned it down, but she lied. She told Rick, Elvis is going to cut this song when he gets out of the Army. So Rick decides, well, I'm going to get the Jordanaires, and I'm going to record this song, and I'll have the hit. But then Elvis came forward and said, no, I didn't say I was going to do that song. And then Sharon said, well, Rick, it was a big hit.
That's right, because that is the song that you really identify with him, and him closing his eyes all the time. I can remember being, I don't know how old, I was a teenager, but I'd watch him. I thought he was so cute, just had such a crush on him. But I go like, keep your eyes open. He when he closed his eyes or blink, it would be so long, and that drove me crazy. I was like, doesn't anybody see this except me? But it was, but I loved him. I saw him in a little club in Houston. My girlfriend and I went, and it was just, it was hardly a stage there, and he got up and sang. And he just got better looking as he got older. He just, I don't know what happened, but he really got better looking. And we were just entranced with this. And I understood when he got mad about everybody wanted to hear him sing all the old songs. And he wrote that song about
Garden Party,
yeah. And that's what it was like. It was really, when he would sing, he tried to do anything else. They go like, "Hey, sing da da da," and they start yelling songs at him to sing. But he was some. How fun that you have all those interviews and that you can play those interviews, the people that have passed, and that you can.
Oh yeah. In fact, I met Rick at Rockefeller's in Houston in '83. I think.
In '83.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Rockefeller's became a great venue. They were so much better than the bank they were, but that right there on Washington, I don't know if it's still there or not. If Rockefeller still has their venue there, but they were good.
Yeah,
I like that. So if you start playing the music and all that, then you've got a hit. I mean, you've got a hit already on your hands. So if everybody wants to go to Spotify and search Don Wilson Hollywood Beat, right?
That's it.
Okay.
That's the ticket.
Okay, just go to that and watch this. This is going to be so much fun. I can't wait to do that. So, and I'm going to try and build my tribute to you and your celeb friends. And
well, I do appreciate that. People are going to get sick of looking at me, but I appreciate it, Cindy.
No, that was it's amazing. I really are so proud that we get to know you. Just because you're such a good guy, not just because you knew Elvis or anything. It's because of you and your heart and all that you've accomplished. So, I think we're up. He just gave me the 2-minute warning and is doing the wrap it up. So thank you, Don Wilson. Thank you so much for being on the show and spending this time with us. And you come back, and I'll find out what Bob Smiley's up to. Okay, we'll figure that out.
All right, anytime.
Okay.
I look forward to it, Cindy. Great talking to you and Richard today.
Okay, good talking to you. Love you. See ya.
Love you too, Cindy. Okay.
All right, now we're getting ready to close it up. When we want to talk to about the first responders, and I just wanted to say thank you, first responders, so much for all that you do, and be safe this year. And everyone, have a great weekend. This is my weekend tomorrow. It's my Friday weekend. Okay, see you next week. It's going to be great fun. Love you.
Every week, people ask the same 2 questions. Are they ready to retire? Will their savings last for their lifetimes? Hi, this is Chris Wootton with Wootton Financial Group. Our firm has been in Montgomery County for decades, but the hopes and dreams of the people we serve never change. We help answer these 2 questions and many more that people have about their uncertain financial future. We have a simple introductory client experience that allows us to get to know the client and includes a few meetings for the client to kick the tires at no charge. We provide a concise, 1-page summary that helps the client get a better handle on which questions are the right questions for them. To learn more about Wootton Financial Group's process in helping their clients to a clearer financial future and to see their contact information, visit Cindy Cochran's show page on irlonestar.com/TCCS. Wootton Financial Group is a proud sponsor of the Cindy Cochran Show. Wootton Financial Group is available by phone at 936-449-5952 or visit them on the web at www.woottonfinancial.com. That's www.woottonfinancial.com.
This program is sponsored by the Wootton Financial Group. It is not the intent of Wootton Financial Group to render or offer personalized investment advice or financial planning advice through this radio program or any related website. Wootton Financial Group's participation in this program is limited to providing general information on financial matters and should not be construed as financial recommendation or investment advice. Investment advisory services are offered through Game Plan Advisors, Inc., a registered investment advisor registered with the Securities and Exchange Commission and the state of Texas. Insurance services are offered through Wootton Financial Group, Inc. Game Plan Advisors and Wootton Financial Group, Inc. are affiliated through common ownership, and neither firm is affiliated with The Cindy Cochran Show. No listener should assume that any information presented and or made available on this program serves as the receipt of or a substitute for personalized individual advice from Game Plan Advisors, Wootton Financial Group, or any of their representatives.
Lone Star Boxer Rescue is a non-profit organization serving Montgomery County and surrounding areas. dedicated to the health and well-being of the boxer breed. Lone Star Boxer Rescue is run and managed 100%